My name is Ibiere Sek, and I am a trial lawyer in Los Angeles. I have my own firm. And today I'm here with a good friend of mine, Alex Wheeler, who recently lost his home in the fire. And we're going to talk. We're going to talk.
We're going to talk.
Alex, I want to talk to you about the insurance.
Hmm.
You've gone through this process, or you're going through the process of filing an insurance claim. And can you kind of tell me a little bit about that process, what it's been like for you, in the hopes that maybe we can help some other people in the same way?
Absolutely. I think that's the number one question I've been getting is what do I do with my insurance? And obviously that's for folks that are fortunate enough to have homeowners coverage. But if they do, they need to act fast
Why?
because a lot of times claims are handled in the order that they are initiated. So the sooner you file a claim, get a claim number, that's the order that the insurance company will usually get to you. They've got thousands of claims to process right now. You want to make sure you preserve it, you get in there, you get connected with an adjuster because there's a lot of things that people don't know. For example, if you have homeowners insurance coverage, they will get you a check immediately to cover new housing if you have loss of use.
Is there a limit? Is there an area in which a person might be restricted in terms of housing? Like you can only rent in this area for this amount. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and as you know, EB, every carrier, every insurance company is different. But for the most part, we're looking at many different types of coverage for destruction in a fire. You're looking at insurance on your dwelling, which is your home. Some people don't know this, but insurance never covers the land. It covers the structure built on the land. So you've got your dwelling structure insurance, and then you've got coverage potentially for lost articles like everybody's clothing, um, cooking appliances, TVs, furniture, everything that was in your home, articles coverage. That's what that's known as. And then there's loss of use, which is my home's gone. I've got to live somewhere. Where do I go? It's for replacement rent. And those are the coverages that kick in a disaster like this. So when you're talking to an insurance company, have them send you what's called your declarations page. And that's how much policy, how much insurance you have purchased.
And it spells it all out on the sheet.
Says it
Everything.
all. Yeah, it's usually like 3 or 4 pages. And it'll say for your structure, here's how much we'll give you to rebuild. For loss of use, here's how long and how much we insure you for replacement housing. And for your articles, your personal property, here's how much your limits are on that. Those are the real things to focus on.
I also think it's really important. This is what I've told everyone who's messaged me, everyone who's texted me, is that any person that you talk to, take down their name, their contact
Mm.
information, what they told you, what you told them. It is incredibly important to document all of the communications with the insurance company. You'd agree, right?
I absolutely agree. Whenever you're talking with an insurance company, you've got to keep copious notes, right? Like, first of all, start with the claim number. That's going to be very important. Name of your adjuster you're assigned to. That's very important. And then these carriers also have third party vendors that they work with and get all the information about them. For example, when I filed my claim, they got me money right away. Literally in an email, a couple minutes later, they transferred funds to help me find a rental. And then, so make sure you ask for that because a lot of carriers maybe won't volunteer that. I tell people, ask, is there money you can get me today? And the answer is oftentimes yes. Because people are displaced. They have to go somewhere. And this is why we buy insurance
For this exact reason.
for this exact reason.
Another challenge that I'm seeing for people is when you're documenting all of the things that you've lost. First off, people aren't even able to get back to their homes. And even if they did or were able to get back to their neighborhoods, back to their homes, nothing is there. They're going off of memory,
Hmm.
right? You're going off of every single thing that you can recall being in the room, on the wall, under the bed, in the drawers. And that is painstaking, it's frustrating, it takes an emotional toll. What was your experience?
It's still going. And I'll be honest, TB, I haven't even started.
Oh,
I mean, we've been so busy with school registration, trying to find alternative living, that we haven't even begun the process. But I do know it's going to be an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to be broken down by room, and I'm going to recreate it the best I can. I've got a lot of credit card receipts. I've got a lot of receipts, and the more of those you have, the better. But really, it is an exercise in memory. I mean, I think that's the way to do it is what was in my bedroom. Let's start with the bed, the linens, the bedside table, move into your closet, reconstruct your wardrobe. I mean, it's down to that level of specificity. And typically the carriers will cover replacement cost. So you've got to have an estimate, if not a receipt. And these insurance companies are used to saying, okay, overcoat. There's a range for that. And if it's a specialty item and you have a receipt, you have got a claim for that specific item of clothing. So it is going to be a very long process to catalog a home and a lifetime worth of things.
So one of the things that I also advise people to do, go through your phone. If you have photos on the cloud, find the videos or photographs that you've taken in your home and use that as a starting point.
Hmm.
Look at the photographs and you'll begin to recall what was on the mantle
Yeah.
place, what was on the bookshelf. And if you start your day a certain way, get up as if you are starting your day and go through it step by step, and that'll help you recall some of the things that were in your home. The reality is that it'll sometimes take weeks or years to really remember everything, and some of the things you'll simply forget, but we
Yeah.
have to start someplace. Also, and I'm wondering if you had to do this, as you're experiencing this now, taking inventory of everything you're purchasing now, the
Mm.
clothes you're wearing right now, the
Yeah.
the shirt that I know that you just bought to sit here with me today, all of the food, all of the travel expenses, everything. Is that something that you're doing?
Absolutely. Saving all the receipts. And that's what my adjuster told me, not just for your lease, but right, if you need to eat out and wouldn't otherwise have eaten out, because we can't wait to settle the claim at the end of the day. I mean, I'm an attorney. I got to go out and get suits. I got to get ties. I got to get shoes. We have to walk around with clothing. So save your receipts as you replace things, and we're going to end up submitting all of them. But the loss of property, personal property, not the structure, but the personal property, I think that's going to take the longest.
Yes.
Absolutely, because let's break down all the kinds of coverage for the structure. The insurance coverage for the house itself, the dwelling coverage, that there's a limit to that, and that'll be in your declaration page. It'll say, in Southern California, homes are expensive. It'll say $1 million. It'll say 500,000. It'll say 3 million. Whatever the number is, that's the limit you have to rebuild your home. And a lot of people are asking me, does that mean I have to rebuild to get that money? And it depends on your policy language. It's what every lawyer usually answers. It
Mm-hmm.
depends, right? It depends on your policy language. That being said, there's case law in California that you can take the money that it would cost to rebuild your home and you don't have to rebuild. You can take that, for example, and you can apply it to the purchase of another house. Your home was worth something, there's a replacement value to it. That doesn't mean you're required to replace it to get that insurance money. That seems to be a pretty clear answer in California law. That's important. It's too bad in a lot of ways because it means a lot of people will cash out and not rebuild, but it means they'll buy elsewhere and there'll be developers that come in and purchase land. So that's an important thing for consumers to know.
Part of the insurance claim process is that an insurance adjuster usually has to come out to your home and take a look.
Right.
Now, we're at a point where, really, in many of these neighborhoods, the only folks there are city officials and the fire department, trying to get the place in a place where people can return. If you can't get to your home, how can you truly begin the claims process by taking photos, sharing the information with the adjuster? What are your
Yeah.
options?
So folks are just now getting into their communities, and I'm sure you've seen the videos of people driving up to their homes, the pictures we do need proof of that. So for me, it was my neighbors sending me videos and pictures that I then forwarded to the insurance company, and then there were no more questions about it. But we do need proof, and usually that comes in the form. If you can't get into your community yet, most people that I've talked to have had a neighbor or a friend be able to get a picture. Sometimes it's news footage showing your block or your home. But once you get that, you can begin your claim.
Yeah. I've also seen people using some of the Google Earth, Google Maps. A lot of the news organizations are using that just orient themselves to what's happening, and then they can pinpoint their home.
Yeah.
So that obviously is something that needs to happen. But just reminding people that you do not need to wait to get back into your community to start the claims process. That is simply a phone call.
Yeah.
Getting the adjuster on the phone through your broker if you need to, and getting a claims number. After that, step by step.
Absolutely. I saw on latimes.com, they've got a great map of neighborhoods and structures, and it actually shows you if you've got at least partial damage.
Good
So,
starting point.
good starting point.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges or obstacles with the claims process for you? It sounds like it was relatively smooth, but has there been anything that's been a bit difficult for you?
So far, again, we're 6 days in.
Yeah.
So far, it's been relatively easy. And again, they've offered a lot of support. They have transferred funds pretty quickly to me to help me, find a place to lease. So far it's been great. Now that's the beginning stages. I'm optimistic. I really hope the insurance companies do the right thing and continue to be that way. When
What
we
does the
get
right thing look like, Alex?
Yeah, well, living up to what's promised in the policy, right? So if your dwelling is insured up to X amount, that's the coverage you expect. And so if you've got loss of use, I mean, we've got to break these terms down for
We
people that
do.
don't
We do.
understand them. Loss of use is for auto and home coverage. And it means you own something that you insure. When it's lost, you have loss of use of that thing that you're insured. If you get into a car accident, loss of use is a rental car. If your home burns down, loss of use is sleeping in your home, having the shelter that your home provides to you. So a rental car for a car crash turns into an Airbnb, a hotel stay, or if your home is completely destroyed, like so many people are in these fires, it's a lease for a year. For my coverage, it's 24 to 36 months because if your home is leveled, that's what it's going to take to rebuild it. So you need to be informed and call a lawyer to figure out exactly how much coverage you have, how much dollar amount the coverage is, and how long a period of time the coverage lasts for. So that's loss of use, and we've covered that. Um, the carrier, by the way, will oftentimes automatically pay your rent. State Farm, for example, the carrier I have, they have a third party vendor that is calling me saying, "Where are you living? Send me the lease. I'll contact the property owner and I will pay the payments." So far it's been great. What I think the right thing is, and where we're going to see some pushback probably from the insurance companies, and this is where attorneys may need to get involved with policyholders that have lost their homes, is when we get to the rebuilding phase,
Exactly.
right? We've talked about loss of use. That's shorter term. That's a little bit easier to quantify. But when it comes to reasonable replacement costs of the house, that's a big question. What is it going to cost to rebuild your home or a home of comparable quality in today's dollars with today's building standards? So if you've got a home from the 1970s, what's the
Or
replacement?
early.
Or earlier, or the 1940s. There's so much of California was developed in the 40s and 50s as the outlying areas were subdivided and these wonderful ranch style homes were built. What's the replacement value for that? And so the insurance company is going to have its appraisal, and it'll have a number when we eventually get there that says, here's what your home is going to cost to rebuild. Here's the number. And what consumers and policyholders need to be wary of is, do you have the appropriate person on your side to say, wait a second, that's actually not the the reasonable rebuilding value of my home. So what I foresee in the next 2 or 3 years is the insurance companies ramping up with its expert witnesses, with its valuation people, and I don't know if those are going to be the fair numbers or not. Depends on the neighborhood. It depends on the economy in general. If there's a recession, building materials are cheaper. If it's a boom construction time, all the contractors are busy. The materials are more expensive. Where's inflation at the time? Some policies, by the way, have an inflation provision built in that can get you even more coverage. So when it gets to rebuilding and the cost of rebuilding, which in California is so huge, I mean, every one of these homes is going to be a seven-figure price tag to rebuild. The insurance companies are going to have to start to think about saving money somewhere.
Right.
And so we need to stick up for ourselves, push back, and make sure we're getting every dollar we're due under that policy.
Absolutely. Which is why it's so important to not only get the declaration page, which will outline what you are entitled to, but also the full policy so that we can look through it line by line to make sure that you are getting what you bargained for, what you paid for, what is fair, and that if we're paying attention, us as lawyers, the community as a whole, we will ensure that the insurance companies are doing what's right. Because you're right, it may look a little different 2 years from now. Right now, the world is watching the
Yeah.
insurance companies. Everyone is watching the insurance companies. The question is, where are they going to be in 2027, 2028, when hopefully many of these homes will be back?
When the enormity of losses, when the billions of dollars, I mean the tens of billions of dollars. I saw an estimate of $150 billion as of this weekend in the two fires, in the Eaton and Palisades fire. I mean, these insurance companies are going to be looking at staggering losses. And we can understand that the need to control costs at some point, but for the individual policyholders, we've got to protect ourselves, and we've got to make sure not only that we know what our coverages are, but again, that we know and are equipped to have our own valuations. Because you don't want to just have the insurance company tell you, here's your number, go out and rebuild. What we want to do is be equipped enough to say, I hear the number you gave me. I've consulted with this attorney, this building expert, or this adjuster that I've hired that has a different number. It's going to have to be a back and forth. It's not just going to be, here's your number, take it.
Yes.
Yeah, and anybody who gets in that situation really needs representation.
Yes, absolutely. We want people to know that they bargained for this. They
Yeah.
bargained for the protection that they're now seeking, and that they're entitled to what is in that policy. No more, no less. That's what's right.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so most people, they don't know how to read a declarations page, or it doesn't make a lot of sense. And for those of us in the insurance litigation business, we can sum it up pretty quickly and give succinct advice.
Absolutely.
So I encourage everybody you don't have to hire an attorney necessarily for this process, but at least consult one and figure out what your rights are.
Now we have all these families, all these individuals finally getting their policies, or at least they've requested it and they can anticipate they'll be here soon. What should they look for?
Yeah, so the declarations page is easier to read. That has the numbers and the coverages. When you get to the policy itself, as you've seen many times, those are 30, 40 pages of very dense legal language. That's when, if there's a dispute or an issue with the interpretation of the policy language, that's when talking to a lawyer becomes very important. And let me give you another example. Just like everybody else, I'm thinking to myself, when I rebuild, do I have to commit to rebuilding, or can I just take the cash payment? That's what's swimming in everybody's head. You've got to go to the policy language for that. And I'm an attorney. I've been a lawyer for 20 years. I'm sitting there. Now, granted, on very little sleep last week, but I'm reading this policy language thinking, I don't know the answer to this one. So we've got an insurance bad faith department at the PARRIS Law Firm. I send it to my colleague, and he gave me the answer. So it takes an insurance trained professional to look at it and really determine what these coverages are. That's just one example. But for loss of use, You know, the rental rate that the insurance company will pay you is based on the value of your home. So if your
So
home,
explain that.
yeah,
Explain that. If the rental rate is based on the value of your home, what does that mean to the average person?
it means if you're insuring a $10 million mansion in Pacific Palisades that burned down, and hundreds of them did, they're not going to put you up in a place that's $5,000 a month, right? It means you bought insurance on a very expensive home, you have a certain lifestyle you're living, and the insurance company needs to find a place that's comparable. That's a very expensive rent. Now, most people aren't in that position,
Right.
but it means that if you have a home that had considerable value, you've got to make sure they don't just put you in any apartment that you're not comfortable with. It has to be. Here's a great example. Go on Zillow, take a snapshot of what your home was worth last week, save that, because they also have rental values. You know, the Zillow
Mm-hmm.
estimate is a sales number, but the rental, you can find it on the websites. You can go to these real estate websites. What's the reasonable rental value of my home? That's what they need to be covering.
So, and this came to mind, and so I have to say it. You're talking about $10 million homes in the Palisades where the rental value is going to be a lot higher and a lifestyle that needs to be maintained by the person who lived in it. I'm also thinking about homes in other parts of the city that are worth 350, maybe not so much in LA County more, but certainly between 500,000 to 1.5 million, meaning that the the amount insurance company might be willing to pay to house that family is going to be a lot different.
Yeah.
And we talked about housing crisis and the limited amount of rental space in the county. It means that some folks are going to be in a really, really tough spot finding a place to live. So there will be people who will decide, I want to take the money from the insurance company and build someplace else.
Right.
Which is why when we're looking at that declarations page and the policy itself, we need to know what your options are. Is that fair?
It is. And I wish that we could answer everybody's questions,
Right.
just generally for everyone and say, hey, if you have homeowners insurance, you can take a lump sum payment. We need to look at your policy. We really need to sit down, look at it, and say, here's what your rights are. Because what I do know is it's not common knowledge, it's not intuitive. For lawyers, it's hard to
Right.
understand. But we have trained insurance professionals that know the case law and know how to read these policies. And if all you do in and day out is insurance, they know the answer right away. And that's
Absolutely.
the resources we can provide.
Some people are asking about gaps in insurance or gaps in coverage. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is and if you experienced any of that with your insurance coverage?
Thankfully, I haven't experienced it with mine, but I've talked to many people in my neighborhood and people that were affected by the Eaton fire that just never thought about their homeowners insurance, right? But now they're looking at it, they're looking at what they're insured for their home, and they're saying, there's no way I can rebuild with this money. I bought this policy 10 years ago. I can't rebuild my home for anywhere near that. And so that's what we call somebody being underinsured. And I always overpreach to my friends and family, never be underinsured. And that means updating your coverages as you go along. We have seen a boom in California real estate in the past, well, since the beginning of California, right? But especially in the past 15 years. We have seen California real estate just go straight up. What that means is if you bought your policy 15 years ago, you're at a number that doesn't have any relation with what your home is worth today. So, a gap in insurance, being underinsured is I haven't gone back, looked at my insurance, and made sure I'm covered for today's dollars, for 2025. And so, for everybody out there who wasn't affected by the fires, this is a big wake up call.
Yeah.
I got to sit down, I got to get on the phone with my insurance company or my broker, and I've got to figure out, do I have enough insurance if this happens to me? Just like the big wake up call was If I get that evacuation notice, I'm not going to sit around at home and think, gee, should I leave? I'm going to get on the road immediately. It's almost that level of urgency.
Yeah, have your bags packed in advance. Know where your documents are. Begin putting your photographs either on a, a, a what is it, a external drive or in the cloud.
Hmm.
When it comes to insurance, though,
Yeah.
for the people uh, who were not impacted in the same way, they still have their homes. Uh, it is suggested that you do a reevaluation of the value of your home. Like you said, call your insurance company, call your broker, say, listen, in the last 2 years, I've put in a deck, replaced my windows,
Yeah.
done all of these things. I want you to know I've done this so that we can figure out what my house is really worth so that I am properly covered in the event of another event like this. And so, do you have any other suggestions on what people can do right now to protect themselves in the future?
I think it's all three coverages, the main three coverages. Am I insured enough to rebuild at today's economic value of my home, what it's worth today? Number two, do I have enough loss of use? Do I have enough coverage so that I can rent for 2 or 3 years if my home is destroyed? And then number three, do I have enough to cover jewelry, clothes, artwork, or if you don't have any of that, just my basic items that I need to replace? Those are the big three. And sit down, look at them, talk to a professional, talk to your insurance broker, talk to a lawyer if you need to. But just, yeah, am I prepared for a disaster? Insurance is a big one.
Alex, what would you say to the insurance companies that are covering the thousands of people who have lost their homes in this fire?
We're going to see a lot of headlines, EB, and we're going to hear a lot of insurance executives talk about the magnitude of the losses. This is why we buy insurance. They are in the business of insuring against mass disaster. It's how they make their money. We've been paying premiums, most people, for their entire adult lives. We pay into the system, and when something like this happens, we expect them to be there for us. So, what I would say to the insurance business is you set up your entire line of business to handle this. We expect to see you in our communities. We expect you to be cooperative, responsive, and proactive. We don't want to be chasing our adjuster down. We want our adjuster to be calling us. We want our adjuster to at least be returning our phone calls and emails quickly. And if we have some needs, like I need help finding a place to live, they have resources in insurance companies, vendors, other companies that can do that for us. We need to ask and not be shy about asking for these carriers to step in and insure us when the losses happen. So, we should not feel bad for the insurance companies. By the way, most people don't know this, but insurance companies themselves are insured by reinsurance companies. So if the insurance company goes out of business, there are insurance companies above them that can cover those losses. So not that anybody would necessarily do this, but let's not feel bad for them. This is how they make their money, and paying out claims is part of the business.
And this is what we've been sold for, I mean, decades. You're in good hands,
Yeah,
right? Call Jake.
right.
Call Jake with State Farm. Now is the time for the insurance companies to show people that they really are trying to do what they said they were going to do, which is to protect people when times like these come about.
Yeah, and that's what I expect to see. I
Yeah.
mean, some carriers have better reputations and are better than others, but I expect to see the mobile response vans, the adjusters coming to California from all over the country. They're used to this. Hurricane Katrina, they mobilized, they got on the ground in New Orleans. They have criteria and response teams, just like FEMA, on that scale, set up to deal with this. So we need to hold them accountable, and I hope that's not a challenge.